Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Eurogulf Information Centre's video commentary. My name is Mitchell Belfer. I'm the president of the association here in Rome, Italy. This week's segment is in relation to the announcement by the United States, by Donald Trump, as to the ending of America's involvement in the Iran nuclear deal. The United States has withdrawn from the agreement. Now that the nuclear deal is dead, I think it's very important to kind of walk through some of the main issues related to Iran's nuclear program, as well as the deal, why the United States government has decided to leave it, and also some of the implications. Before we do so, however, I think it's very important to address the legitimate fears that people have and the anger people may have towards the United States for their decision. Already today, we've heard the European Union, Mogherini, she has mentioned, for example, that the United States cannot unilaterally leave the treaty, which of course it can. It did already leave it unilaterally without needing to negotiate really with anybody, because the United States felt that not only its interests, but the interests of some of its allies were actually being endangered by the treaty. But be that as it may, I think that it is important to highlight that the European Union did spend a lot of time in negotiating this with Iran, as did the previous American administration. However, just because the agreement had a long, let's say, history of negotiations behind it, doesn't mean that it was necessarily a good deal. And the deal itself was deeply problematic. We are facing, I think, some of the biggest and most pronounced challenges in the Middle East because of the deal, not because of the deal itself, which is supposed to have restrained Iran's nuclear ambitions, but because in doing so, in restraining Iran's nuclear ambitions, we have quite literally poured money into the Islamic Republic, believing that the Islamic Republic was going to be liberalizing, although there was no evidence to suggest so. So I would just like perhaps to go over why the deal itself was kind of negative from the beginning, so that we can also build on scenarios afterwards as to what's to be done about it. The first thing to keep in mind is what the nuclear deal does is it froze Iran's nuclear capabilities, but it did so by offering huge sanctions relief, by ending sanctions that were targeted against both individuals as well as specific organizations like the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in the Islamic Republic of Iran. This has empowered the Revolutionary Guards by giving them money directly, because they control the economy. The economy is not liberal. Money is not going to flow to the average Iranian. Instead, what you've seen is the concentration of more money in the hands of an organization that is essentially trying to create regional upheaval. So from the very beginning of the nuclear talks with Iran, back in 2013, 2014, culminating in the agreement in 2015, there was the idea that there would be a money flow heading to Iran, and that money flow would help to liberalize the country. That has not happened. Instead, you have more terrorism, you have larger scale insurgencies, and you have the transfer of very sophisticated weapons to conflict areas like Yemen, like Syria, also like Iraq, by the way, and new conflict areas that Iran is trying to enter into, for example, in Saudi Arabia, as well as in Bahrain. The other thing to keep in mind is that Iran was never going to be a nuclear power the way that we conceive of them. It wasn't going to be an India and a Pakistan. It wasn't going to be a China. It wasn't going to be a United States or a Britain or a France. It wasn't going to build up a regular set of nuclear weapons that could therefore be looked upon by the international community. Iran is an asymmetric actor, and the nuclear program that it was looking to building before the nuclear deal was a clandestine nuclear program, and we need to be reminded of that. So instead of focusing on the kind of mature nuclear programs that a country like China would have developed, we need to understand the way that Iran was trying to enhance its power using nuclear weapons. And there we can point to the 2008-2009 completion of the enriching of uranium process in Iran. They had completed the cycle, and they were able to build what they call RDDs, the radiological dispersion devices. In our parlance, we call them dirty bombs. And actually, the kind of nuclear terrorism that the Al-Quds force would be able to deliver, until today, by the way, that has never been a subject of discussion, is nuclear terrorism. But Iran has a nuclear terrorism capability. And because they're so well adapted to asymmetric warfare techniques, it also stands to reason that the nuclear program that they sought is the nuclear program that they have, and that is in relation to your briefcase bomb, your terrorism using RDDs. So that is already a factor in the arsenal of Iran, and that is something that needs to be addressed.